Conflict is super easy. Conflict is the go-to. Compassion is very difficult. And compassion is our entire art form. What we do is a compassionate art form. I have to have compassion for myself to understand my own insecurities and viabilities and my vulnerabilities and my self-destructive nature and my joys and my embarrassing dreams and my backstory and my trauma and my celebrations. And I have to be compassionate about myself so that I can then understand myself, so that I can then play character who I have to be very compassionate to, my character. And then my passion for the audience. And I'm worried about the audience. I want to make sure the audience is getting it. And then the whole thing becomes about empathy. So I have a compassion with some young man who lives in Columbus, Ohio, I've never met. And that's why I'm doing this part. Because we're all trying to raise the world and be a better place where we all understand each other. So it is, by definition, a compassionate art form. The conflict in the scene is inherent in the scene, but that's the easy part to play. The fuck you, I don't want, leave me alone, those kind of scenes. And so in my classes, it became really clear a long time ago that when I have an early actor, that they're not used to dialogue and they're not used to being connected to another person. They're not used to really actually listening to somebody else and having to deal with their emotions and things. I throw them a scene that's all conflict. And, there's those scenes where it's like from The Last Kiss, where it's like she just basically screams, fuck you, fuck you. Like, so she emotionally prepares her boyfriend has betrayed her, and then she just screams the whole time. And it feels great for the actor. And this is why I think David Mamet is cheap and John Patrick Shanley is really complex, is because what I do is I give an actor a lot of conflict-oriented scenes to start, and they conquer those pretty quickly. And then what you do is you give them scenes with just a little less conflict, and then a little less conflict, and a little less conflict, and they get harder and harder and harder. And when you have a scene of almost zero conflict, two people, and my template for that is Sideways, two people sitting around talking about how they really like wines, is one of the most difficult scenes you can possibly do, because you have to be electric, charismatic, exciting. It has to be like anxious, provoking, and dangerous, and I have to feel uncomfortable as an audience member, but you're sitting around talking about wine. So how do you do that? And it's because conflict is static. There is this much conflict based on the scene. We pretend there's this much conflict. Now, is it outward or is it inward? And it's kind of like an equalizer. There's some scenes are 100% conflict outward, and those are really easy to play. The scenes that are sort of 50-50 conflict are harder. A scene where zero conflict on the outside, but it's all internal conflict, is much more difficult to play. That takes a deep and profound self-understanding and ability with your emotions. And that's where you get Mark Rylance or Benedict Cumberbatch or like a Viola Davis, or they can hold a scene with almost no conflict and be just magnificent. I don't know what scene you're going to give me, but Al Pacino in Serpico, he's like, what the fuck, I'm feeling everything here, and he's just like losing it, and he's Pacinoing the shit of the scene. Yeah, that's great. That's good. He's really good. He's amazing. But I think Robert Downey Jr. doing nothing in Iron Man is a much more difficult role to play, because it has no outward conflict, but you have to maintain your magnificence. And how do you do that? So the schools that you're talking about are doing actors a major disservice, which is why I got ripped to shreds on my first job on Broadway, was because I didn't know how to be an internalized, script-oriented, fully realized human being. And that's on stage. When you put a camera on you, you're supposed to invite the camera into your internal life, but you don't have internal life if you're doing this, And so they do a major misservice to actors by making them conflict addicted when we should be compassion oriented.